I was halfway through my empty drive home, the kind that follows a 12-hour ICU shift, when my phone lit up with our landline number. At that hour, in our quiet suburb outside Denver, no one should have been calling from home. My husband, David, was supposed to be on a business trip in Dallas. My 8-year-old son, Liam, should have been asleep. I almost didn't answer. I was too tired to deal with a malfunctioning alarm system or another one of David's "did you check the garage door" reminders, but the call wouldn't stop ringing. And something inside me, some small, uneasy part I'd learned to ignore over the years, told me to pick up. The moment I heard Liam's voice, the steering wheel slipped in my hands. He was whispering, breathing hard like he was hiding. "Mom, don't come home. My name is Elena Martinez." And in that instant, something cold and electric went through me. The kind of fear that doesn't ask for explanations. It just moves. "Liam. Honey, what happened? Are you hurt?" He swallowed. The sound sharp in my ear. "I'm at Mrs. Reynolds' house. I heard Dad on the phone last night. He said something bad is going to happen to our house tonight. He said he needs to be on a plane when it happens. Mom, please, this time. Believe me." Traffic blurred past me in streaks of color as I pulled over, my chest tightening in a way I hadn't felt since the day my father died. A mother knows when her child is scared. Truly scared. And Liam wasn't a kid who made things up. But hearing him say it about David, it cracked something inside me I didn't realize had been brittle for years. And it was only the beginning. The moment Liam's voice went silent on the line, I realized my hands were shaking so hard the keys on my ring rattled against each other. The glow from the dashboard painted my knuckles a pale blue as I tried to steady my breath. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the rush of blood in my ears and the faint echo of Liam's words. "Don't come home." I'd spent years convincing myself I had a good marriage, a stable one, a practical one. I worked nights at the hospital. David worked days in medical sales. We were ships passing in a neat, scheduled rhythm. I told myself that was what adulthood looked like. Maybe I even believed it. But as I sat there on the shoulder of the road with hazard lights blinking against the snow-dusted pavement, I started to feel the cracks in that belief widening faster than I could catch them. I called Liam back immediately. He answered so quickly it was as if he'd been staring at the phone, afraid the moment of connection might slip away. He sounded small, breathless. "Mom, are you coming to get me?" "Yes, honey. Stay with Mrs. Reynolds. I'm on my way." I'd known Margaret Reynolds for years. Retired school teacher. Always baking something. Always watching over the neighborhood kids like they were her own. Thank God Liam ran to her house. If he'd stayed inside hours, I couldn't finish the thought. As I pulled back onto the road, my headlights carved a narrow path through the quiet Denver streets. Houses I'd driven past 1,000 times suddenly felt ominous, too still, too dark. Snow had begun to fall again, thin flakes drifting across the windshield like ash. I tightened my grip on the wheel. Liam's words kept replaying. Dad said he needs to be on a plane when it happens. David had flown out that morning, suitcase rolling, coffee in hand, giving Liam a quick kiss on the head before turning to me with that tired, rehearsed smile I'd grown used to. "Be careful driving home tonight. Roads might ice over." I'd brushed snow off his coat collar. He'd smelled like cedarwood and cologne, comfortable, familiar. My husband, the father of my child. And now Liam was telling me that same man was planning something horrible. The problem was somewhere deep down something in me wasn't shocked enough. And that realization hurt more than anything Liam said. When I reached Margaret's house, she opened the door before I even knocked. Her robe was tied crookedly around her waist, and her gray hair was frizzed from sleep. The porch light flickered behind her as she ushered me in. "Liam's in the kitchen," she whispered, glancing toward my face as if searching for answers. "He came running over 10 minutes ago, scared out of his mind, said he heard something he shouldn't have." I took a breath, nodded, and stepped past her. Liam was perched on a stool at the counter, legs pulled tight to his chest. When he saw me, he practically launched himself into my arms. I held him so close I could feel his heartbeat thudding against my ribs. "Mom, it's real." I heard him. Dad wasn't whispering like he usually does. He sounded different. He pulled back, staring straight into my eyes. I know you don't like when I say scary things, but I couldn't pretend this time. His voice broke, and I felt something break inside me, too. I smoothed his hair back, kissed the top of his head, and forced my voice to stay steady. You did the right thing. I'm here. I believe you. Those words seemed to melt some of the panic from his shoulders. It struck me then how hard it must have been for him to make that call, knowing he might not be believed. Margaret stepped closer, her voice low. Should I call the police or David? At the mention of his name, Liam flinched. That alone told me enough. No, I said quickly. Not yet. I need to see something first. I could feel Margaret's confusion, maybe even concern, but she didn't press. She simply placed a warm hand on my back and said, take whatever time you need. If you two need a place to stay tonight, the guest room's ready. It was kindness like that, simple, human, that nearly undid me. But I had to see the house. I had to know if Liam's fear had a shape, a shadow, or if I was losing my grip after too many years of long shifts and quiet resentment. I guided Liam to the car, buckled him in, and drove toward our street, stopping 3 houses down. From there, we had a clear view of the front windows. Everything looked normal, calm, silent, the kind of calm that's so perfect it turned sinister. Snow fell thicker now, glowing softly under the street lamp. I turned off the engine. Liam leaned forward between the seats, his breath fogging the glass. Mom, he whispered, do you see it? I didn't. Not yet. But something in the stillness made my skin prickle. And then, far at the end of the street, headlights appeared, slow and deliberate. A dark van eased toward our driveway. I felt Liam's hand slip into mine. Mom, he said again. That's the car I saw last night. The van rolled to a stop, and in that moment, every doubt I still clung to evaporated. Whatever was about to unfold in front of us would decide everything that happened next. The van's engine cut off, leaving only the soft hiss of falling snow. 2 men climbed out, their movements quick, purposeful, the kind of body language that made every instinct inside me twist. They didn't look around like lost delivery drivers or neighbors checking the wrong address. They moved like people who knew exactly where they were going. My house. One of them reached into his jacket. I braced myself for the glint of a crowbar. Anything that would mark them as simple burglars. But instead, he pulled out a ring of keys. My keys. Liam's nails dug into my sleeve. I pressed his hand gently but firmly, trying to steady the tremble in both of us. When the man fitted a key into our front door and the latch gave way with a soft, obedient click, something inside me collapsed. It wasn't just fear. It was the sickening realization that someone I had shared a bed with, someone I trusted with my life, had given strangers the right to walk into our home like it belonged to them. The men slipped inside without turning on the lights. The door closed behind them, swallowing them into darkness. Liam whispered, Mom, they're not supposed to have those keys. Dad keeps them in his desk drawer. I know, I murmured, my throat dry. Stay down. Don't move. Minutes passed, or maybe it was only seconds. Time stretched thin and brittle, like old glass ready to shatter. Through the cracks in the curtains, faint beams of flashlights flickered, sweeping across the rooms I knew by heart. The entryway, where Liam kept his muddy sneakers. The living room where David and I used to fall asleep watching late-night TV. The stairs leading up to the bedrooms. I couldn't breathe. Every part of me screamed to run over there, to burst through the door and demand answers. But Liam's small body pressed beside mine, kept me anchored in place. My son had saved my life once tonight already. I wasn't going to let panic undo that. A moment later, the first smell reached us. It was subtle at first, sharp, chemical, drifting through the cold air like a whisper, then stronger, too familiar, too distinct.
Gasoline.
Liam covered his nose. Mom, is that what I think it is? My chest tightened. Yes. I had seen fire more times than I wished to admit working in the ICU. Patients brought in with burns so severe the air in the trauma bay felt different around them. Fire had always been something that happened to other people in other lives, other tragedies. But now it was walking around inside my house, wearing boots that tracked over the floor where Liam had learned to crawl. A thin trail of smoke began to slip from the kitchen window. Then another from the living room. A faint orange glow flickered behind the blinds. "Mom, I see it." The glow grew. It pulsed, breathed, then flared upward with a violent crack that snapped across the street like a breaking bone. Fire surged through the first floor, swallowing the shadows, devouring the walls. Flames rolled through the house with terrifying speed, climbing toward the second story, toward Liam's bedroom. I opened the car door on instinct, my body acting faster than my mind. The cold air slapped me in the face, but I barely felt it. All I could see were the curtains in the upstairs window turning bright gold, then burning through entirely. I ran 2 steps before Liam's voice stopped me. "Mom, don't. You can't go in there." He was right. I knew he was right. But watching your home burn is a kind of grief that short-circuits logic. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, the heat reaching us even from across the street. Windows burst one by one with sharp pops. Sparks drifted upward into the sky like fireflies from hell. Neighbors began to wake, porch lights flickering on. Someone yelled they were calling 911. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, winding through the quiet suburban streets toward the inferno that used to be my life. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. The screen lit up with a text banner. "David." I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to know what he had to say. But my thumb moved on its own, and the message opened like a wound. "Just landed. How's my favorite nurse and our little man? Hope you're both asleep. Love you." The world seemed to tilt. Snowflakes spun sideways. My stomach lurched violently, and I turned away from the burning house just in time to throw up onto the curb. My knees buckled, but Liam's hand steadied me. My 8-year-old son trying to hold up the pieces of his mother. He whispered, "Mom, I told you. I told you Dad was planning something bad." I wiped my mouth with my sleeve, tears blurring everything. "I know, baby. You were right." And because he had been right, because he had been brave enough to say something I didn't want to hear, we were standing outside this car instead of dying inside that house. The dark van sped away just as the first fire truck screeched to a halt at the corner. The men must have slipped out the back door moments earlier, disappearing into the night without headlights. I looked at the flames clawing up what remained of the roof, and something sharp, cold, and immovable formed inside me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was an execution that had failed. And if David had planned for us to die tonight, then the only thing more dangerous than going home was letting him think we were dead. The fire trucks swarmed the street in a blur of red lights, and we watched from a distance as firefighters rushed toward the flames with a discipline that came only from facing catastrophe again and again. Liam pressed against my side, silent now, his eyes reflecting the blaze as if he couldn't decide whether to fear it or mourn it. I wrapped an arm around him, trying to shield him from the sight, but there was no way to protect him from what he already knew. We couldn't stay there. Someone might recognize us. Someone might tell David they'd seen us alive. And right now, the only advantage we had was that he thought we were gone. I ushered Liam back into the car, my fingers trembling so hard I missed the ignition slot twice before the engine finally turned over. The moment the car pulled away from the curb, I felt a wave of guilt so heavy it nearly knocked the air out of me. I'd lived in that house for 12 years. I'd raised a child in it. I'd patched up walls, planted a garden, spent holidays cooking in that kitchen. Now it was gone, and all I could think was that we were lucky not to be inside when it burned. We drove until the flaming silhouette of our neighborhood vanished behind us, replaced by dark stretches of road and the faint glow of Denver's skyline in the distance. I needed somewhere safe to think, somewhere David would never look. A motel seemed like the only option that gave us anonymity. The one I found was a cheap roadside place near the interstate, a squat building with peeling paint and flickering neon. If David ever saw the place, he'd probably sneer at it. That thought made me strangely grateful for its ugliness. We checked into a room with 2 double beds, thin blankets, and a faint smell of old cigarettes, but the door locked, and that was enough. Once Liam was under the covers, staring blankly at the muted television, I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to breathe. Each inhale felt shallow, like my body couldn't decide if it needed more air or less. My mind kept circling the same questions.
Why?
How long had he been planning this? What else had I missed? My phone buzzed again. Another message from David. Elena, are you awake? Please answer. The police are here. They can't find you. I'm terrified. Please call me. His words might have fooled me if I hadn't seen the fire with my own eyes. If I hadn't seen strangers open my front door with his keys. If Liam hadn't said the things he said. But now reading his messages, all I felt was a hollow ache where trust used to live. Liam peeked at me from under the blanket. Mom, are we going to the police? I hesitated. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to march straight into a precinct and tell them everything. But what exactly did we have? My son overheard a phone call. 2 men with keys, a fire, and a husband who appeared to be frantically looking for his family on the news. I could already imagine the questions. Why would he want to kill you? Do you have proof? Was your son dreaming? Did you misunderstand? I couldn't risk being dismissed. Not tonight. Not when David was still out there and still believed his plan had worked. No, I said, choosing my words carefully. Not yet. We need help first. Someone who will believe us. My father's voice drifted through my memory as clear as if he were sitting beside me. He'd been sick for months before he died. And on one of those difficult days, he'd taken my hand, looked at me with eyes far more serious than usual and said, if you ever feel like you're standing on breaking ice, call Victoria. She'll know what to do. At the time, I brushed it off, convinced he was just being overprotective. Now, his warning felt like the last gift he'd ever given me. I dug through my wallet until I found the old business card he'd slipped inside years ago. Victoria Chun, attorney at law, a number printed beneath, ink slightly faded. I dialed. It rang 3 times before a woman answered, her voice low and gravelly, as if she'd been up reading legal briefs instead of sleeping. Chun. Miss Chun, I said, my voice cracking. My name is Elena Martinez. My father was Robert Brennan. There was a pause, a long one. Then she said, I remember Robert. He told me you might call someday. Where are you? I glanced at Liam, curled on the motel bed, his eyes shining in the dim light. I can't go home. My house burned down. And I think my husband tried to kill us. Another pause. This one colder. Sharper. Are you in danger right now? I don't know, I admitted. But he thinks we're dead. Good, she said. That buys us time. Can you drive? Yes. Then listen carefully. Take your son and come to my office. Do not contact your husband. Do not tell anyone where you are. And Elena, come through the back entrance. I'll keep the lights off. Something in her tone steadied me. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't confused. She was prepared. Okay, I whispered. We're coming. I hung up and slipped the phone into my pocket, feeling a strange mix of fear and relief settle in my bones. I helped Liam out of bed, bundled him into his coat, and took one last look around the motel room, our temporary shelter carved out of desperation. Then we stepped back into the cold night, heading toward the one person my father had trusted with the truth long before I ever saw it. By the time Victoria parked near City Park the next morning, the sky was the pale gray of a day that hadn't quite decided what it wanted to be. Liam stayed behind at her office, watched by one of her trusted paralegals, while Victoria walked me to the bench where David and I had agreed to meet. My chest tightened as I sat down. I felt exposed, like stepping onto a stage where the wrong line could end everything. David arrived exactly on time, wearing the same suit he'd flown out in, only now wrinkled and stained at the cuff. He spotted me, froze, then hurried forward with a mixture of shock, confusion, and something darker flickering beneath the surface. Elena. God, you're alive. He reached for me, but I stood before he could touch me. His expression cracked for a split second. Annoyance showing through the concern he was trying to imitate. Where's Liam? Are you hurt? Why didn't you call me? I know about the fire, I said quietly. And I know you weren't surprised when the police couldn't find our bodies. His jaw tightened. Elena, you're scared. You're confused. Whoever told you, you hired them. I cut in. The men with keys to our house, the insurance papers in your safe, the burner phone, the notes. You planned this. His face drained of color. Elena, you broke into the house. You tried to kill us. For a heartbeat, everything stilled. A jogger passed behind us. Cars hummed distantly. David's breath came faster, sharper, like an animal cornered. You don't understand, he whispered. I was drowning. Elena, the debts, the pressure. You were never supposed to be home. It would have been painless, quick, and the money would have fixed everything. My stomach turned. You thought killing your family would fix things? He looked around, frantic. When he stepped toward me again, I moved back. That tiny shift broke whatever composure he had left. His hand shot out, grabbing my coat sleeve, fingers digging in hard. Give me the flash drive, he hissed. The documents. Give me everything you stole, and maybe I can make this right. You won't touch me, I said. Louder now, steady despite the tremor in my bones. David didn't notice the movement behind him until the badge flashed. Detective Morgan and 2 officers closed in fast, their steps silent until it was too late for him to run. David spun, yanking me with him like a shield. Stay back. She's lying. His voice cracked under the weight of panic. She wants to ruin me. But I wasn't the one who answered him. A voice behind the officer said, We have your messages, Mr. Martinez. We have your financial records, and the men you hired are already talking. David sagged, his grip loosened, his knees buckled before the officers cuffed him. For a moment, he stared at me, rage, disbelief, and something like regret warring in his eyes. Elena, he breathed. You were supposed to save me. I felt nothing but the quiet relief of stepping out of a fire I hadn't realized I'd been living in for years. As they led him away, the weight in my chest finally lifted. Not completely, not yet, but enough for air to find its way back in. When I returned to Victoria's office and Liam ran into my arms, I understood something with absolute clarity. We weren't just survivors.